Yeah, certainly sustainability is one of the big challenges, environmental impact and social licence to operate. Zero emissions is a really big focus for the sector at the moment. I think also the speed of adoption of technology. So technology is rapidly changing at a speed that's difficult to keep up with. So by the time you implement one technology, a new one's come along. So the rate of change of technology is really hard to keep up. And therefore the skills, trying to keep the right resources that understand the new technology, for the objectives of the business, it's a real challenge for miners to find the skills they need. Yeah, so really it's the collaboration between the miners that's different. We're starting to see them work together to aggregate their needs and make sure they articulate the value of technology to their operations. In the past we had one mining company working with a technology vendor to solve a specific problem, but now the miners are grouping together and showing what the total size of the prize is. And as a result we see investors and researchers and vendors all working together to try to address the needs of the industry. So for Australia, we're in a lucky position. Our research sector has been funded by Tier 1 miners for 30, 40 years. So we've got this huge amount of research that's sort of stranded in the research sector that really addresses some of those challenges. So technically most of the problems are solved. The challenge really now for us is commercialising those, and for us as a local opportunity, helping the vendors that you see here today turn those research outcomes into products and services and sell them to the global market from our local economy. It's huge potential for the growth of Australia. Electrification is a really big challenge because it's one of the first ways to approach zero emissions and zero emission technology. There's lots of different technologies that can play a part, but they've all got to work together. So interoperability is a really key ingredient to doing that. We need to make sure that we don't have 100 vendors with their own individual products and services, each individually solving the problem on their own. Everyone's technology needs to be able to integrate with everyone else's so we can make the most of it. And I think the other thing is really vendors collaborating around solving problems. So rather than having a point solution that addresses just one really small part, really trying to integrate technologies across a few different vendors so it makes sense to the mining companies. I mean, sustainability is something that we've got a real urgency about now, and there's a lot of technology that's available to address it, but really it needs to be commercialised. It needs to go to market at scale, and it needs the skills to deliver and deploy these new technologies. The mining companies now know the diminishing returns of having bespoke technology in their supply chains, and they really lack the resources in their own organisations. They want to concentrate on mining, not on technology. So they're really reaching out to the vendor community to step up. But to get the vendor community to step up, they've also got to make a commitment. Innovation's not a charity. They really need people to invest in the innovation, buy it, sell it, so that there's profits that can be reinvested in developing that technology. So I think that probably the key drivers of innovation at the moment. So net zero emissions and sustainability is probably one of the key drivers of innovation at the moment, because the way that you go about that is harnessing renewable energies, finding alternative energy sources, storing them and then using them, which means that you've got to change the way you do mining. Many parts of the mining process are energy intensive, but they're very short bursts of high intensive activity. And if you've got a variable energy source, you need to really flatten out the curve and start to distribute the way energy is used. And so that's going to require a whole new mining method, a whole new set of technologies, a different way of doing things that we used to do. But the existing mines today aren't going to change, and they've still got 20 years of mine life. So we've still got to sustain them and find ways to economically exploit the minerals that are already there, but put in place emission standards that weren't there when those mines were built. So new technology to address legacy problems and innovative technology to address new ways of mining. A lot of innovation happens in two places. It either happens in research and universities, in programs that are funded by large mining companies, or it happens in very remote locations with really small vendors who just service a local mine, and often the rest of the market doesn't get to see those opportunities. What we're seeing with mid-tier miners in particular, they're really going to look for everyone through the research sector, through remote communities, and they're bringing it to their collaborative workshops. So we've got this mid-tier miners reference group, and they're putting out there the types of technologies they're looking for and the types of challenges they're facing, and they're all sharing with each other what they've seen in the market, and they're co-developing and sizing those opportunities. And if they don't do that and they don't look across other sectors, then they're not going to get the best of the rate of change. I think another part to that puzzle really is cross-sector collaboration. So mining can be cyclic and our innovation cycles slow down when the sector slows down. Leveraging the technology from other sectors and seeing how that can apply in the mining sector sort of speeds up the rate of innovation and technology adoption and helps with interoperability because the technology is not specifically designed just for one purpose. Scale isn't an issue if you take the blinkers of industry away. So if you only look at technology by industry vertical, then there's a limited market opportunity for most of the innovation you see here today. But if you look at the technology here, it applies to agriculture, it applies to energy, whether it's generation, transmission, distribution, renewables, off-grid or microgrid, if it's water or wastewater management. So when you look across different industry sectors at all the different applications of those technologies, robotics and automation is a great example. It's required with just about every one of our national manufacturing priority sectors. And the technology we've got in the mining sector has been used by defence, it's being used by space, it's used by agriculture. So if we stop looking at technology from a silo perspective and we look at it horizontally across all the industry sectors that are critical to our economy, scale's not an issue. And there's countries much smaller than ours that innovate and scale and go global. New Zealand just across the ditch is a great example. So most of their innovation goes global first because they have to, and that's where the market is. So if we stop looking at it from industry specific and we start to look at technology as a horizontal that supports our sector, there's plenty of opportunity to support the investment we need. Visibility of innovation in the sector is a really big challenge, and a lot of mining companies that say what they want, most of those problems have been solved. The problem is it's not commercially available to them. It comes a little bit back to some of the research programs that we do where we focus on specific problems invested in by the mining companies to solve in their operations, and we need to think more about how that could be applied right across the sector. So transparency comes when mining companies not only explain what they want, but they explain why they want it, and how it's going to benefit them, and how they want to buy it, and how much they're willing to pay, and what type of vendor they want to buy it from. Because when we understand not only what the technical challenge is, but what the commercial business model is to deliver that technology to market, that's when we'll start to see, as I said, investors lean in, the technology vendors say, hey, there's a market here. If there's not an economic opportunity, then we're not going to see the innovators participate in the local market. Sustainability of the innovation cycle is a tough one, but I really think that this is where research needs to deliver an economic return. Most of the research that we do in Australia does one of two things. It either optimises the supply chain of an end producer, or it sits on the shelf at a research centre. And researchers do some amazing things in this country, and when you get to see what research is out there, it's unbelievable what we've technically done. But if you don't identify the market potential for that and a partner to make money out of it, we're going to lose the reinvestment into more innovation and more technology. Also, I think we're going to see miners are going to have different challenges in the future, which is going to be a different investment cycle. Gone are the days of a 10-year investment program for a 40-year asset, because the mines of the future are only going to be 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. They want to see a short and sharp return on investment. So research with a commercial purpose, not just a technical purpose, is the way that we can reinvest and sustain our innovation and research technology. The role of vendors in enabling the technology ecosystem, I mean, they're the R&D branch of the mining companies. So as miners can no longer afford to build their own bespoke technology, huge R&D teams and technology groups, as we've seen, the big miners have started to move away from having their own in-house technology. But you look at the exhibition here today, this is the R&D centre for the entire mining industry. And there are so many vendors out here who are desperately trying to provide a valuable solution for the market. They just don't understand the terms in which they need to provide it. So really, if we can get the mining sector to think of the vendor community as their R&D department and an economic return on investment both for them as the customers, but also for the vendors in terms of reinvestment in innovation, it'll really drive the rate of change, the speed of adoption, the size of the companies and the skills base that we'll have in the country.